Next up, we have Dr. Jay Yu. Dr. Yu is a distinguished engineer, architect, and director at Intuit. He currently leads advanced research and exploration projects in Intuit Futures on knowledge graphs, language model, and behavioral data science. With over 18 years of experience at Intuit, Dr. Yu has worked on many strategic capabilities and product innovations, including App Fabric, Fuego UI, Taxcaster, E2E data architecture, and strategy. Dr. Yu joins us today to give a great talk on how artificial intelligence and graph databases can be combined to improve business performance and exceed consumers' needs.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to my talk. My name is Jay Yu. I'm a distinguished architect and engineer at Intuit. What today I'm going to share is an AI-based Customer 360 platform for tomorrow's enterprise. What is the enterprise of the future? IDC, I found this wonderful site. IDC shared their vision. What they're talking about is an enterprise that really is innovating, is really focused on using technology to automate the business process, and has a big platform thinking, as well as consider everything together as an ecosystem. They identified 9 critical priorities for enterprise of the future to think about it, for all the enterprise to think about it, to see how you can move to the future. One of the biggest and foremost the important piece is future of customers and consumers. As you know, any enterprise want to serve their customers and consumers well. That's where they develop the product for. That's where they get customers satisfaction. And then that's how they can actually grow their business in terms of serving those customers. So the future of the customer and consumers demand have a high expectation in terms of the level of understanding about them from an enterprise point of view. This translates into serving them the most personalized experience, delightful experience, understand their journey, right? Carry on the conversation that's really contextual rich. They feel like they're being heard, they're being helped, and finally, all leads to is high level of satisfaction with your enterprise product and application. And data about customer is at the center of the future of enterprise. So what does that mean? This is where we introduce a term called Customer 360. It's nothing but a holistic view of all connected data about the customer. It starts with, at the centerpiece, really is about identity. Who are you? Who are the customers? What is their account? What is their contact? What is demographics? And then equally important, if not more important, is ability to understand what are they doing with your product and applications. This is being captured by click streams. This is being captured by the deep domain expertise in terms of the data and so on and so forth. And of course, part of the things you want to keep your customer engaged. You want to actually show them what are the new features coming. You want to share with them the value added capability you're building so that they can keep coming back to using your product. Everybody will need some help at some point, and that's where customer support, customer success plays a huge role. We want to understand what is when and the journey of customers, how they actually contact us, the enterprise, how do they get help, and then how the relationship is being managed. Of course, we need to cover those things about the transactional activity in terms of placing order, paying the orders with whatever the payment method. Also, we want to understand how customers access our product via different locations as well as devices. And finally, how customers interact in the social media, that either voice their opinions, actually recommend the product. It's a great listening post for all of them. So we want to keep track of everything about our customer. And that leads to many benefits. The key benefits for enterprise are, by having a holistic view, it's going to boost your retention. You know where your customers are. You know whether they have issues. You can proactively going to make sure their needs are being taken care of. And of course, knowing everything, you can decide where is the best way to optimize the inefficiencies to make the whole workforce, make your enterprise more productive. And then the other thing is by having a holistic view and having up-to-date information about where a customer is going, you can easily adapt to changes. You can identify trends early. And finally, everything leads into how do you leverage all these data to discover new business opportunities to help you grow. Unfortunately, in big enterprises, there's a huge barrier to Customer 360. This is called silo data. And silo data is actually a pretty common. And when a company first starts with one product, it's much easier, much smaller. There's probably not much issue. You have product applications online. You move data from online to the lake. You have total control of the schema, the data format, and so on and so forth. So everything is relatively cohesive. It's all streamlined. You use it for data warehousing analytics as well as machine learning. But the minute you introduce the second product, very likely that team have to move so fast. They introduce their own technology stack. They introduce their own notion of how to describe a customer in terms of how they name it, how the actual value they collected, the format they use, and then also there's a stack of technology to do all the analysis and machine learning. And then you also often have to integrate data from third party. This is where by design, these data are very, very different than what you have in your enterprise. And to make things worse, back-end systems like marketing, like customer success, they all want to aggregate the data from front end, putting their own format, but also they provide new data to meet their specific needs. And this thing can go on and on. It's actually a great problem to solve. Why? That means your enterprise is growing. You have you have tens, 20, hundreds of applications. But at the same time, it's really, really hard to stitch everything together to form this Customer 360 view. And this is where all the enterprises like Intuit focus on what are the right data pipeline, data architecture to support Customer 360. So I'm actually painting a very simple picture, a very high level architecture. It's all about having a set of data mesh capability technology can stream the data from the sources, various sources with different format, different data, and then go through a streaming pipeline to do standardization of the data, to do matching and entity resolution to make sure get rid of the duplicate, connect the data together, and then to enrich the data with new derived attributes. And that leads to a high quality Customer 360 platform with data all cleaned up, uniformly represented, and then also connected. And on top of that, then you can build a standardized online service API, reporting and analytics, as well as building up machine learning models to support various use cases, ranging from fraud detection to customer success, including personalization and so on and so forth, in either near real time or batch oriented processing. So when you actually put all the data into one single place for Customer 360, and one of the things you will find, your data becomes more and more rich. Remember when we first started to say this is what the Customer 360 data will look like, the different dimensions. Think about for Intuit, we have one type of customer is called consumer, the personal finance. They use our software to do their taxes. They actually got our call centers, our customer success agents to help them go through the difficult process of finishing their return to increase their confidence. But at the same time, we also see a lot of visitors actually visiting our website without even showing up, without even logging. So for us, they become a separate entity. They have their own 360 views in terms of what they're doing, based on the device, based on the IP address they have. But very easily, we can connect the dots between the registered consumers and visitors via information like a sharing devices. That give us much more insight. We also serve small business as our customers, and they use our software to manage their accounting, manage their business, payment, payroll, and so on and so forth. They use our platform to actually move money in terms of either paying for invoices or receiving money for the orders they ship. Guess what? Between consumer and small business, there's also a relationship that's reflected in the transactions. Consumers buying goods and service for the small business we know. So via that, we're reaching out to see that kind of connection. And finally, We partner with a lot of banks, okay? And we actually introduce the best product to our customers via Mint, Credit Karma, as well as QuickBooks. Guess what? Those banks, once this product being actually purchased by the consumers, including small business, then they establish a direct relationship via a loan and so on and so forth. So as you see, this whole customer 360 is very rich. Once you have data there, you can start connecting them many different entities in many, many different dimensions. So there's a lot of insight in the graph that is waiting to be discovered and to be utilized for your business benefit. So how do we do that? So this is where I want to introduce this notion called graph-driven AI. It is about combining graph algorithm, graph mining with machine learning. First, let's take a look at what graph algorithm and graph mining can do for your use cases. This is a wonderful Medium post by one of the thought leaders in the knowledge graph space called Dan McCurry from Optimum, associated with United Health. And he basically built up this taxonomy about all the use case can benefit from graph algorithm and mining. There's a lot of detail there. I'm not going through, but think about the following. First of all, having the data representing the customer 360 in the graph way, you immediately can uncover relationship really, really fast. You can easily detect the similarity between customers. You can group them together. And also mentioned earlier, it can help you to perform fraud detection. The second area is really the flexibility. As the customer 360 is never stale, you'll keep growing by adding new data, even new types of data. And graph really facilitated that really well. And the connectiveness give you this contextual richness, can guide you through some of the, even the NLP or chatbot interaction. And finally, the bottom part is the most exciting about. Oftentimes, you can use graph algorithm directly to do product recommendation based on people similar to you, like you doing, recommend this product for you, recommend the next best action because we see how other people, similar to you go through their journey. And finally, we can easily compare the various entities together. Now, not all of the insight can be discovered directly by graph algorithm and mining. And this is where machine learning comes in. Machine learning does really good by uncover patterns human beings have a hard time construct an explicit rule. So in this particular case, what we're saying is since graph organize data in a much rich connected way, then we can actually, as part of a featureization, defining the features feeding to a machine learning model, we can include the graph characteristics or intrinsic properties on a graph as part of the new dimensions. In this particular case, with this, customer group where they access the product, we can actually generate 3 green graph-related features related to page ranking, which is the algorithm behind Google search to determine for connected entity which one's more important, the degree, what degree of connectivity between any entities, and finally, what communities you belong to. By enrich your original key value pair data set features with those graph-based features, suddenly you can uncover a lot more and you can greatly improve the model precision and recall. So what I want to share next is 3 concrete use cases we're benefiting at Intuit from this graph-driven AI and it related to the customer 360 journey. The first one I want to talk about is entity resolution. And that's a shining example how you can use graph quickly resolve basic duplicates, making sure you connect the things together. And then the second part is really how do we leverage the data in the customer 360 to generate new insight. And then third one is the one I actually care the most, our team care the most at this point is really fighting fraud. So let's take a look at it. What does that mean to do entity resolution via graph AI? So the entity resolution is really about looking at dispersed and duplicated customer information and perform graph analytics and inference and unify them, identify the matching and unify them and connect them together. In the graph world, you can easily connect things together directly. So this is an example of I have 4 instances. Those pink nodes represent 4 pieces of customer information. They all coming from different data silos. but quickly connecting on the attributes they have. For example, a number is shared, a phone number is shared. I know these two entities somehow have some relationship. Maybe the first name is shared. Suddenly you see this connection even visually, how these entities relate to each other. Then you apply a graph algorithm based on the weight, importance of the relationship, based on the pattern of a connection. You can actually have inference rules. If that's the case, if the weighted average of this connection is above certain threshold, very likely these are the same entity. They should belong to the same customer. So suddenly you introduce edges to direct edges to connect those pink dots together. And armed with that information, you can really determine, say, oh, A connect to B, they're similar, B is similar to C, then I know A, B, C together form a cluster that represent the same customer. And that gives us a lot of benefit. As you know, this whole process is very intuitive, very declarative. You know what kind of inferences you're using. It's very explainable, either visually or through the algorithm. So it's not a black box. A lot of machine learning suffer from black box, right? You use the label data and say, machine tell you that's the case, but how do you know why that's the case? In the graph world, you can easily do that. And finally, with this approach, whenever you add incrementally a new information, we can perform this analysis in real time for you. So that's really the power of using graph to actually do entity resolution. The second use case is about how to unlock relationship insights. In this particular case, for us, we want, when a customer shows up in our door or actually log into our system, we want to know what is the financial information about this customer. What this, whether it's a user or visitor, or what's their intent. And finally, what is the journey in terms of lifetime journey on their finances, as well as their relationship with us. In this case, our team built up this, a subset of a customer 360 graph, focused a lot about visitor information based on device access, focus on users, which is registered users. And for registered user, we have rich information about relationship to financial institute, which store all their financial transactions, and as well as asset and property investment and so on and so forth. And the company here is about Intuit. At this point is Intuit, their relationship with Intuit, their relationship maybe with our small business. And then each of those users usually use one of our offerings, whether it be TurboTax, QuickBooks, and Mint. And then through that kind of a rich relationship, we know the journey stage, we know their intent, and we perform graph queries directly on it to actually understand where they are, and we perform analytics and ML to derive new insight, and we use graph mining to uncover hidden relationship. And one of the first success use case, by connecting a user with visitor, we're able to quickly recognize a user when they actually, before they log in, we know likely this is the user we know about. With that information, we can simplify and streamline the sign up and signing process. And finally, armed with all this information, we can easily create a right for me personalized experience to make our user feel much valued and much well known, instead of every time I have to, tell you the same thing again and again. We already know who you are. And I'm not going to go to the detailed algorithm. This is the algorithm being used underneath. There's a graph mining algorithm being used to connect a visitor and user to calculate the likelihood they are a match. And the great things, after we deploy this particular customer 360 use case in production, within a few months, we already see 4% jump in terms of visitor recognition, and then 5% jump in signing success. That's already based on the top of the already very good percentage, like almost 90%. So additional 5% is huge. As you know, the long tail use case is really hard to solve. And then
4 minutes left.
Thank you, Daniel. The final use case I want to cover is fraud detection. And this is a huge problem, a huge area we want to work on, because we want to protect our small business with their hard-earned money. We don't want to fraudsters to steal money from them. We don't want fraudsters to steal money from consumers. So fraud is all based on the customer 360 graph with enhanced information to understand the relationship between devices, a person, locations, and then layer additional fraud information on top, so we can tag certain entity as potential fraud. We can see how they connected with the rest of the entity. And that kind of fraud detection graph is the essence centerpiece for the whole fraud and risk platform our team built. And the centerpiece is Tiger Graph. The database hosts the fraud graph. And then on top of that, we build tooling, visual tooling for investigation, case management tool, as well as the essence is really the link analysis service using the algorithm to predict what kind of fraud might be there and then feed that information back to the system. So one of the key features we found out is it's a huge breakthrough. It's game changing. We found that by using graph-based feature, this is one of the examples. In this case, the rightmost is something we labeled as fraud. And somehow it's connected to a business entity. And this business entity, through some monetary transactions, connect to another entity. And through a number of other hops, connect to the far left entity, right? Armed with that information, we enrich our data model, machine learning model with those graph-based features. And we're able to compare with graph, without graph. Guess what? The team was able to accomplish 50% jump in precision and recall. That's unheard of usually when you're really familiar with data science and machine learning model. And this really doubled the effectiveness of all models to predict the fall. So that's huge. So what are the key things you can take away from my talk here? Number one, I hope by now you already realize Customer 360 is the center of future enterprises. Remember the IDC article, remember why it's so critical to the business for the growth. And then the second part, naturally, data in Customer 360 is best represented as a connected graph. It is the most optimal representation, but also it reflects the truth because it's very naturally explainable. And finally, with that rich kind of connected graph, apply a graph-driven AI, you can maximize the full potential of Customer 360. You can discover, rediscover, uncover a lot of deep insight, and those insights will help your business grow. And finally, I hope by now you realize it is time for you to think about how to build such an AI-based Customer 360 platform. We benefit a lot of that from Intuit. We hope you can do the same to propel your business growth into the future. With that, I'm concluding the talk. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you, Dr. Yu.